get started. Fab. So thank you everybody for coming today. We're going to be talking all about Youth Shape Scouting in this session today. And it's part of like a whole day of workshops that the development team have organised kind of on various topics to support you in your scouting role. So I'm Elizabeth, I'm the Growth and Development Officer for Central Yorkshire. So I work with the county to kind of, support them with anything growth and development wise. I'm here today with Kieran.
Hello. Right, that's my introduction. So let me show my screen. Hold on. PowerPoint. Right, can you all see my screen? Just give a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right, so a brief introduction about me. My name is Kieran Starder. I am the assistant section leader for First World Cup Pack, which is based in West Leeds District. The main reason I'm here today is I'm a youth representative on the county development team for Central Yorkshire. I've also completed the Young Leader Scheme, so this is the Youth Shape Scouting workshop. So this is why the Young Leader Scheme also ties in with all this. I've been in scouting for over 10 years now, and I've been through all the sections. And I sometimes help with Beavers and Scouts as well, although Cubs is pretty much my speciality. And the best bit about me is I love camping. Was literally my favourite thing. So yeah, that's my introduction. So Elizabeth, I'd go through the Young Leader Scheme bit, or shall we?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, do you want to go through the Young Leader Scheme and then we can touch on more about Youth Shape Skating later?
Yeah, okay. So the Young Leaders Scheme is a program that is designed to get Explorer Scouts into assisting leaders in the safe running activities. Included in all this, there are training courses that you can do in order to achieve badges and give yourself more information. So after you complete the first stage of the badge, which on the bottom right corner is the Young Leaders badge set. So the acorn in the middle would be section A, which is all safeguarding, all the important stuff. And then you've got 4 badges around the side, which count as missions. So these are also bundled in the training courses, which allow you to further take part within your section that you're helping out in. And when you have completed all of the Young Leaders Scheme, you'd have learned key skills such as first aid, leadership, teamwork, communication, timekeeping, all of this. And the most important thing in any scout group, you will know the key aspect, which is safeguarding. This then allows you to have an influence on planning, which then keeps in shape, which then keeps in form with Youth Shape Scouting. Because as a youth representative, being a young leader as well, it then allows you to have an influence on what that group is doing by having a youth giving ideas out, and then working in liaison with the clubs, Beavers or Scouts or whichever section you are in it. And the Young Leader Scheme also then develops you as a person, and you know when you eventually become an adult leader, if you want to, which is what I've done, you'll be a better lead. You'll be a better leader from it, and that's really helped me out. So I've fully completed the Young Leader Scheme, so I've got all these badges, the belt, and I wear this badge proudly on my leader shirt. So the Young Leader Scheme helped me because originally I was at Explorers. I was just going to go for Explorers, and then I was going to do my GCSEs and A levels, and then just call it quits there. I was not going to do scouting anymore. But then my Explorer group was unfortunately shut down because we was lacking in leader numbers and no one was willing to take over. So this is when I found the Young Leaders Scheme, and yeah, my district commissioner mentioned it to me, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll try it out, see how it goes. And I fell in love with it almost instantly. I was like, yeah, this is the perfect thing for me, and I'm glad that I found it because it's made me into a better person and a better scout leader from that. Right, all right, I'm done now.
Fab, thanks, Kieran. So hopefully that's helped give a bit of a kind of overview of the impact that doing the Young Leaders Scheme can have on our young people and how important it is to get people involved in that. And so I suppose, yeah, we're going to try and keep this session quite like informal, have a bit of a discussion about Youth Shaped Scouting, what it is, kind of some new things that have come out from the Scout Association to like, yeah, support you with this. So I suppose Youth Shaped Scouting is all about, we want to create an environment where people, well, young people specifically, can take chances and like try things out, have a safe space to make mistakes and then learn from them. And as we're a youth organisation, it's really important that we like put those young people first and that we give them a chance to kind of work with us as their leaders and things like that to help make a difference to their section, to their group, and then their community. And we really want to empower them to kind of stand up for what they believe in. And by doing that, we'll not only kind of help our sections and our groups become like stay modern, stay relevant, and stay what the young people want to be doing, but also we'll be kind of giving them a chance to build their skills and to kind of grow in confidence as well, which is a key part of what we're doing as Scouts, I suppose. And hopefully what Kieran was talking about a little bit there has showed you like the direct impact it can have on somebody when you give them the opportunities to do that. And this doesn't have to just be kind of asking them what it can be asking them what they want to do in their sessions. That's a really great way to start it off, but it can also be things like involving them with governance of the group or things like that. So you can think a bit like out of the box with it about how you can get young people involved. And when we see the best examples of Youth Shaped Scouting, it's all about where young people are there kind of helping make decisions at, I suppose, every level of the group, and I suppose making it appropriate to whatever age group they are in their sections. So something to help you with this that's just come out, I think at the beginning of October, is the new U-Shape Award. So I'll just share my screen now so you can see all the information on the website that is available. Let me see, hopefully you'll be able to see that now. So basically the U-Shape Award is all about, we're trying to help youth commissioners and leaders just embed Youth Shaped Scouting into their programme a bit more. And if I scroll down a little bit, you can see the different badges, and each one comes with these different sections, which can be done at any time, I think, and they just kind of join together to create a bigger badge. And there's different levels for each section. And so if we click into the Beavers one, it takes you through all of the information about what the award's about and how you can kind of use it in your section. And so there's things like how they can set their goals, make it happen, about planning, leading and representing. So different elements of what we'd consider with Youth Shaped Scouting and kind of taking a role in that. But it's just nice now that they can get a badge for doing it. And it's a really great way for you to kind of incorporate this into your programme to make sure that it's happening. Has anybody started using this badge yet or put it into their programme yet? Has anybody got any experience of using it so far?
No, I've just been having a little look at it now, and I think it's really interesting. Hi, I'm Sarah, by the way. ACC development, DCC development, just to demote myself. But yeah, so I've just had a little look at it, and I think what's really interesting about it, and I think where they've absolutely completely hit the nail on the head, super well, is that it's in little pieces. So, like for example, in this Beaver section here, the centre of the badge you get first. And that is for deciding on the idea, deciding on the action, what it is that the young people want to do. So Elizabeth, would you just click on that for a second?
Oh yeah, of course.
Trying to click and I'm like, it's not mine.
Here we go.
But so literally it as soon as they have had decided what it is they want to do, what they want to work towards and what they want to achieve, they can gain the centre of the badge. So that's where that starts the process off. And then obviously at Beaver level, the next bit of the badge is essentially where they do their planning. So that could be like, like having a log chew or looking at what ideas they're going to have for a trip or a camp or whatever it may be, and then that they can get their planning section, and then obviously they piece it together from when they've sort of gone into each different stage of what they've done. And I think it's a really clever, tangible way of encouraging young people to sort of almost work through that process. rather than having one badge at the end. You say, right, you've done it, tick, achieved. There's actually a really nice stage process to it, and I think there's obviously been a lot of thought put into to how that works. And obviously the chap who's not here, just to be completely transparent, was one of the youth commissioners, but he also worked on the creation of this badge. So we're really looking forward to hearing about how that went. So that's why we haven't got as much detail perhaps as we would have done. But it scales up for each section. So it works right the way through Beavers, Cubs and Scouts. I think there are some notes on how you can adapt it for Squirrels and Network as well. Interestingly, the notes for that are both on the same page, which made me chuckle. I presume they're different, but they are on the same thing. But yeah, I think it's a very big step forward in terms of providing an actual tangible structure for youth shapes that anybody could build into their section sort of evenings or plans or whatever, but in a very straightforward way. And I think it'd be really nice. I think it'd be really interesting to see how people employ that in districts and across the county, which will be really, really cool. Yeah, sorry, I just waded in there, Elizabeth. Sorry.
No, that was great. Thank you, Sarah. And I suppose because I think we only launched this, I think, at the beginning of October, so it's still very new. So you perhaps has missed this term's programme planning, but definitely something to look into for next term. And after this workshop, I'll send you a link to the page on our website where you can get all the information about that and do a bit more reading about the section or sections that are relevant to you. So what we're going to do now is have a bit of a discussion, I suppose. And with Kieran and Sarah's help, we're going to do a bit of a panel discussion about their experiences of youth-shaped scouting and things that they've seen that have been really good, and also things that they'd like to see in the future. And I'd really welcome anybody here, I suppose. If you've got any comments as we're going through, please feel free to put your hand up, say something, ask any questions. We really like to hear your thoughts and kind of your experiences as well. So I suppose we heard a bit about Kieran's scouting journey earlier and his kind of experience from going as a young member at a really young age through the sections into Explorers, becoming a young leader, and now he's an adult volunteer. So Kieran, what are some really great examples of youth-shaped scouting that you've seen, I suppose, over your time in the movement so far?
When I was a cub, pretty much, our leader, he used to pretty much let us take part in we used to have pack forums pretty much. And when we were doing pack forums, we basically he gave us a list of badges that looked interesting. And we were picking them as we all discussed. And then after we'd finished picking, then the leaders would then go away, have their planning meeting, and then come back to us with a program, and then we just get on with it because we know, and we'd also know we'd enjoy it because it's the badges that we picked, and it's the badges that we know that we're going to engage with, because we know not all badges have a highest amount of interest as other badges, like the creative ones and the sporty ones, but they all need doing. And with the youth shapes, you can take a badge like maybe in the international badge, and with the international badge you can then put a U-shaped spin on it. So then with when you put the U-shaped spin on it, then the young people, they decide what they want to do with the badge, but you then also keep in turn with the requirements, because you don't want to miss out on any specific requirements, because then you won't get the badge. But then after the young people have then put their spin on it, then the leaders will then discuss that, see if it's all good and it's working out and everything. And if it is, then we just went along with it. And we've got the same scout leader, we've got the same club leader now. So that tradition's been going for nearly 10 years now. We've been doing this twice a year, once before Christmas and once after Christmas. And after Christmas, at the start of next year, we're hoping to actually do the U-shaped badge ourselves. So I'm hoping to try and push for it to be done in our group, because if we're the first group in West Leeds to maybe then actively complete the badge, then I think that would encourage more scout groups to get the badge done and whatnot.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that part about kind of letting them go and, I suppose, run with it, and then the leaders checking in to see how they're doing, the Cubs, but letting them run with it, I think, is a really key part, because we want to, if we're asking the Cubs, for example, to give us their ideas, things they can do, we need to kind of take them and like try and see if they'll work. And if they say something that's obviously not going to work, then maybe explain why you can't act on that, but not to just kind of take their things and then say, okay, that's great, we're going to do it this way because I've said so. I think it's really important to, like, when you're giving them the space to speak and like to kind of do badges in their own way, to make sure that you let them to do that, and not just to say that you're going to and not actually do it. Has anybody else got anything that they've done that's worked really well in terms of like involving younger members of the movement, or I suppose people? Has anybody got or seen anything? Oh, Gareth, you got your hand up?
Yeah, thanks. I'm Gareth Luby. I'm a district commissioner for. I usually look at my badge at this point to make hilarious references. I forget me real. I'm DC for South Leeds and Morley. One of the things we've found, I've been really struck with how well the new U-shaped badge links to what used to be the leadership award and the team leader award, particularly in the scout section, but in other sections as well, and how it really widens the opportunity we have with that badge and that award to a greater body of young people. And what we found works really well, we've done it as a district, but I don't see any reason why we shouldn't work in groups or work with groups working together. Well, we did it with patrol leaders, but we've done it with other sections as well, brought this together and really developed a whole ethos of a team day of planning. And we've realised that asking young people to plan an event without giving them the skills and the time and the opportunity to look at planning strategies, look at planning styles, has led to less successful events. And what we really wanted to do is make sure we're giving young people that time to really look at what being a leader is. There's an excellent resource, I think it was called Taking the Lead. And I've been struggling to find it all week, actually, to share. I will dig it out. I've got about 20 copies of it saved on my hard drive somewhere. There's a Taking the Lead for Explorer Scouts, but there's an adaptable one for all sections with some really good practical tips, starting with team building, but also getting young people to realise their ability to take part in decision making, not just decision making in Scouts, but decision making per se. That has led to some of the best events we've done as a district, I felt, in reflection. It's also led to some of the best risk assessments I've ever seen, the best paperwork I've ever seen handed in to me as a DC. And it's shown that young people, give them the right opportunity, but I think above all for me, give them the right amount of time and the time to take up to actually get these things in place. It's led to some really effective results. I'm really grateful for everything we've got from young leaders now. I think with my cynical hat on, young leaders make great leaders, and that's why we have fantastic young leaders. It drives the difference into groups. It drives the change we need to see in groups. But I think with the new U-Shape Award and some of the skills which we can put in, developing these leadership skills and Beaver Scouts leads to good Cub Scouts leads to good Scouts leads to good Explorers leads to good young leaders. And I think it's realising that actually young people are capable of so much more. But what's important is that ability to work in teams and that support and training before they approach a project, so that they feel comfortable that they are in charge and that they have the ownership of a project. So I know that's worked really successful in our district. We got hit by the pandemic, which it's led to some interesting. We tried to do our own version of video instruction from young people. That had hits and misses, and I think that was more challenging. And the thing we learned from that is the actual time to talk and the time to discuss and the time to learn from experience is the biggest thing young people need to be able to be successful. And the other thing is not to do a U-shaped event once, and that's done for the year. And once you've got the badge, that's fantastic. It's using those skills and being able to keep developing and keep building it up, because just like leaders, our young people develop and grow from doing things again and again and learning how to adapt and how to do things differently. We found that really beneficial, but I think it's fair to say we're only sat to touch the tip of the iceberg of where we can go with U-shaped Scouting.
Yeah, I think building on that, I think I scouted in sections, particularly the younger sections, was where my main leadership roles were, and we found that, well, certainly I used lots of different sort of short, quite dynamic ways to gather opinions from young people. I think there's often a preconception that it has to be sort of a sat down sort of, let's have a conversation, do whatever. But we used to do all manner of things. We'd do vote with your feet. So we'd have questions, and you'd have colours in different corners, and say, right, what are your thoughts on this? Go and stand in the corner you want. Or things where they had to sort of thing, you know, they put their vote in a particular coloured box or in a particular coloured corner, or things like that. And I think some of the best ideas I've ever had have come from Beaver Scouts asking me, saying to them, what do you want to do? Genuinely, some of the best ideas I've ever had. But that even just, you know, giving them having that collection of ideas and saying, right, so this is what we're thinking, what do you want to do? But like Gareth says, making it commonplace. So actually they drive that scenario, and obviously your framework that you work within is different depending on whether you've got explorers, beavers, sometimes not as different as you might imagine, but there's a scale there, isn't there? But loads of different ways where they're making the decisions, making the choice, and having that ownership. And I think that the engagement that you get from that, and from people saying, actually, well, this is what we chose to do. This is our choice. It's our section. It's our unit. It's our pack. We're going to decide what we want to do. But I think as well, using whether you've got Beaver Brothers, lodge leaders, patrol leaders, whatever, there's also a big opportunity there to encourage conversations between peers. So your sixers, your whatever section you're in, them having that discussion with their little group of people, and then feeding back into that bigger thing, creates a bit of a sort of like a tiered system, but it's a young person led tiered system. So it's not, oh, we're going to put an adult with each group and they're going to talk at you. It's like, no, actually you're going to talk amongst yourselves with your leader of your patrol, etc. And then they feed back into that, and it gives everybody that little bit more responsibility, that little bit more ownership, and just starts to build on that leadership idea from being 6 or 7 years old. It's like, actually, even at 6 or 7 years old, you can talk amongst yourselves, and somebody can make a choice or make a decision, and have that ability to take that lead in sort of incremental steps. And the confidence you see from young people, and the eloquence you see from young people, that people don't always give them credit for. And actually, it's like, yeah, they're entirely capable. And I think sometimes it's very easy to be like, oh, we're going to sit and plan this because that's the easier route, or the path of least resistance. But actually the product that you get and the input that you get from young people is massively valuable, and they really enjoy that process of doing it. And it doesn't have to be a formal sat down, you know, everybody listen, put your hands up if you think this, but you can build it into games, you can build it into activities, and things like that. Sorry, jabbering on.
No, that was great. I think they were both some really, really great examples. I love the idea of bringing like patrol leaders together and having a district kind of event for them to a bit of training, I suppose, or like develop their skills so they can then go and do the planning and stuff. I think that's a really, really good idea. And then Sarah, what you've just said about kind of, I suppose, like giving them the space, and they've got the eloquence to do it, and they've got the ideas. We just need to, I suppose, facilitation from our part to kind of have those conversations amongst each other. And I suppose my next question I had was, I suppose to Kieran, but to anybody else as well, do you have any advice on communicating with younger members? Like if it's somebody that you're like, I suppose communicating with them in terms of like beavers or explorers, I suppose, like the different age groups.
I think when it comes to communication, really, when it comes to beavers especially, you've got to, like, what I tend to do is like shorten the sentences down and like just get straight to the point, because if you just end up talking, you're going to lose interest, because beavers, we know beavers way too well. They're not going to stand still for like 2 minutes. So they're going to end up running off. So you need to get straight to the point and then tell them. But with clubs, with Cub Scouts and beavers, you can sit them down for a long period of time. So maybe a 10, 15 minute time, you can explain the point to them and then gradually get to the point. But when it comes, the main thing about communication for me is I just get straight to the point, and then after I've said my point, I then explain where my point's coming from and how that's going to affect everyone pretty much.
Oh, fantastic! Thanks, Kieran. And I guess as well, part of developing leadership skills and these kind of these skills that we're developing in our members is identifying, like as Gareth said, like if you develop it in beavers, they become cubs, and then scouts, and then explorers, and then young leaders, and hopefully adult leaders in the end. But another route they could take is potentially becoming a youth commissioner, or going into something that's maybe not a cub leader, but something another role, a more type of support type role. And I know that James has just joined us, and James, I was wondering if you had any advice, sorry to pick on you like this, on like how us as adults can empower young people to think about taking on those type of like commissioner roles or leadership roles as they are kind of becoming more towards, I suppose, 18, how we can like empower them to start thinking about what's next in scouting.
Thanks, Elizabeth. It's a great question, and hi everyone. It's lovely to see you all. Just very briefly, my background is that I was a county youth commissioner until a couple of years ago. I've had a little bit of that kind of experience there as well. I've been a group scout leader as well, so I've kind of been involved in all of that. But in terms of Elizabeth's question, it's a great one, and I think quite an important one when you think about the variety of skills that young people have. We know that I mean, you will all know the young people in your sections, and you might have the young people who fall very naturally into that kind of leadership role in the section, whether that's leading a patrol or a lodge or whatever. But you might have the young people who are interested in IT. You might have young people who are interested in media, things like that. But talk to young people, find out what their interests are, because actually I think scouting is a great opportunity for young people to build their skills towards wherever they want to end up career-wise as well. We operate as a charity, but we, if we think about our county, are the size of, well, bigger than many small businesses. So we're doing all of those things that those people are doing in order for us to operate. And so actually there are lots and lots of opportunities there. So find out what your young people are interested in, and if you're not sure that you've maybe got an opportunity for them within your group, then speak to your district, speak to the county, because we're always interested in finding people who are sort of interested in getting involved with whatever, whether that's helping us with our website, whether that's being the person who's there taking photographs at an event. All of those things are great, but I think it starts with the base of know what your young people are into, know what your young people are interested in.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for that, James. And that's really good advice. And I suppose if there's something that you're not sure whether there is an opportunity, then I suppose you can go and ask someone else in the district or in the county and stuff. And like, as you said, there will be something in scout. We say it with adults as well, and it's exactly the same for young people. I think there's something in scouting for everybody to go and do. We just need to find it. And I suppose as well, it's something that we're not always like, we're here at the moment, but there's always like further we can do with being more youth-shaped, be like taking people's views into account more. And I was wondering if you guys had any things that you'd like to see us do better, as I suppose as a county or as a movement, or what would you like the next step in youth-shaped scouting to be, I suppose? Kieran or James or Sarah, anybody who wants to chip in there?
Just having a little think. I reckon we could push for it more on like massive county camps, like challenge camps and like jamborees and stuff like that. I reckon when we're doing the activities at challenge, for example, I think some of them activities at some of the tents could be like U-shaped orientated, and then people can then come along and then see what the U-shaped badge is all about and how U-shaped scouting can impact your group and impact your district and whatnot.
Yeah, fab, thank you. Oh, Andy, I've seen you've raised your hand.
Yeah, it's just how we can move the boundaries from just being in our group or district for youth-shaped scouting, because the kids will have fantastic ideas, but in isolation, we're very restricted into what your group does or what your district does. So how we can broaden that to get more young people talking in different settings and backgrounds, etc., to then bring ideas back in and cascade them around.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. And I suppose we're going to talk a little bit at the end, actually, about where the county's plans are for our youth team going forward. And that is something I think that we could really take into consideration, is how can we create some sort of forum for people to cross, I suppose, districts, county groups, to meet each other, but also to I suppose share those ideas and kind of get them taken. If it's a big idea, how can they be escalated to somewhere, a team that's going to be big enough to make it happen, I guess. Thank you for that. That's a really good point.
I think that's a really interesting one, Andy. And from my point of view, I sort of lead our central program based in initiatives, events, kind of things for the county now. And we exist as a county to support you as leaders and to support your districts and ultimately your young people. So whatever we are putting on needs to be what's right for you and for your young people, and the only way we know that is through talking to young people, and quite often just because of the logistics of it, that has to be via you as leaders, but anything that we can do in terms of being able to take that information from your young people and feed that into what we're trying to do to support you and to support those young people is really, really valuable. And I think that links into what we'll come on to later around what we're doing in the county and where we go with that to help us. But from my point of view, I really, really want to know what your young people want to do, not just right now, but across the board when we're doing events. And so I think the communications channels that we've got at the moment through ADCs, through ACCs, through district commissioners are really important. But do ask your young people as well and feed that information through, because that's really important as well.
James, so you mentioned those communication channels. Obviously, one thing, possibly being selfish here, and good communication channels for district youth commissioners would be really, really helpful in getting good youth-shaped scouting out and having some collaboration between DYCs across the county and across the region as well would be really helpful in spreading, sharing good practice and celebrating where it's working.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
I've got a hand up, yeah. I think you might need to, Leanne.
When explorers do the young leader training, they have to do 6 months with another group rather than with their own group. Surely that can be included in this idea.
Yeah, so they can use that to share different ideas and to do that. Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually, isn't it? Because then
it's very useful, because they'll come back and say, well, at so-and-so, we do so-and-so. And that is far more profitable for the young people, because they are the ones that listen to each other.
Yeah, because we often say, don't we, that it would be really nice if we got to see more sections like other sections than and like I say, that's built into the young leader badge, isn't it? So that's a really good point that we probably don't capitalise on quite as much as we could, but we definitely could have. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. That's as I said, a really good point. And I think that might be a nice way to segue actually into what the county's plans are for their youth team going forward, and like youth-shaped scouting, I suppose, across the county. So I'm going to pass on to Sarah to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we're a bit of a crossroads from the sort of youth commissioner perspective. We're going to be looking to recruit back into that role again in the near future. But James, Carol, and myself have been thinking really, really hard about how we structure that role, but also how can that role facilitate youth-shaped sort of more broadly than just the county, rather than having like a county team and a district team, and how we can do that. And what we really like to try and do is almost build it the other way up and think about how we can support districts to get their district youth commissioners in place and build that as a team, and then have the county youth commissioner work within that. And we're coming up with this just in the final stages at the moment of a much more concise, much more specific youth commissioner role for the next person in that role. And one of those, the main sort of core areas of that, is actually building and supporting the district youth commissioner provision to try and build that, because obviously I think that's a link that we've had in the past, but we haven't had it as much recently, and what's really, really important is actually much like all the other sort of systems that we have in place. If we've just got a county youth commissioner without any district youth representation and without a team to work with them, actually there's a link missing there in that process, and that sharing of information, that sharing of support, and building a community of people who are experienced and able to support with that youth-shaped conversation and that youth-shaped dynamic doesn't work if you don't have that link between the different sort of tiers of your counties, your groups, and your districts. So yeah, in the very near future, we're going to be looking at that role, but also looking at how we can support districts to recruit into the district role as well, because we see it, and I think I'm getting this right, James, chip in at any point, that it's almost like we're going to try and create a team rather than try and create a person. That's a singular entity that's going to support youth-shaped scouting in the county, because that's not it doesn't seem like the best model to go forward. So there will be a youth commissioner, but one of their primary aims is going to be to facilitate district youth commissioners and district youth-shaped scouting to help and support with that, to ensure that there is that link, and that it's not just sort of in chunks where each, as Andy was saying, each district or group is operating in isolation, to really open up those pathways and ensure that, like James says, if we're planning events, we're planning changes, we're thinking about what we're going to do moving forward, it shouldn't just be, how do we get youth shaped in? It should be that they're actually there from the very start. They're at the initiation point of what we're doing, because they should be saying, this is what we want, this is how we're going to move that forward. So hopefully very soon you'll be seeing some information about that, and about how we're hoping to recruit into that. But you will see probably a difference in the shape of that role from recent times, because we think it's time to have a little bit of a change and think about how we enhance that provision. And I think the youth-shaped badge, or the U-shaped badge, might really help with that, because I think it's come at a really good time to just sort of broaden people's awareness again, and sort of bring it back to the forefront of people's minds, which I think is really important post-pandemic. We've got through the sort of, everybody's just doing the best they can, and we're trying to get back to a bit more normality. And I think for us, U-shape needs to be the new normality, and I think it's a really important time to start.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And I suppose if anybody has any thoughts about how that will work, can they just all right to get in contact with you? Or I think if anybody does have any thoughts on how that could work, or any feedback, feel free to get in contact with Sarah. So that kind of brings us to the end of our session, really. But I wanted to ask, has anybody got any questions or any comments they'd like to make before we do finally finish it off?
I have.
Yeah.
Was recorded, because I've missed most of it.
Yes, we have been recording it, yeah. So we'll be the recordings that we've done today, we're going to upload to the Central Yorkshire YouTube channel, probably over the next couple of weeks, hopefully, but I'll send everybody an email to let them know that it's been, once they're available.
Thank you.
Yeah, fab. Anything from anybody else?
Just to let everyone know, I've linked the information to the U-shaped badge in the chat, so if anyone wants to link, you can just grab it from there.
Fab, thanks, Kieran. And we've also got a feedback form. Let me just get the link to it, and I'm going to put that in the chat as well, and I'll send it in an email as well later today, which we'd really appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes to fill it in, just so that we can have an idea of how you found the session, and how what you'd like to see going forward from the county, or from the movement as a whole, I suppose, and also kind of help us shape future things that we do. And the things that we're doing today, or the other workshops, have kind of been built from feedback from the ones we did in June, so we are taking it on board and acting on it, so it is really helpful to hear. I suppose again, thank you for coming. And thank you for bearing with us. It's been a really good discussion, actually. And thank you, everybody, for your contributions. It's been really great to hear different things about what you've done in regards to youth scouting, and things ways we can improve it as well. So I'll stop the recording now. And then that's kind of the end of the workshop. So thank you, everybody.